Hello, hello. Yes, again, Sir David the Bard and Cockroach Disability. Oh, yep. Well, here we are again. Hopefully, hopefully you'll use my PayPal and give me a tip. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, here's the subject today. I got thinking this morning about bullies. I really can't explain why, and I'm going to use the word, I hate bullies. When people take advantage of other people that are pretty much innocent victims, sometimes people have characteristics that make the monkeys that we all live with focus on them, tease them, harass them. We see it in when we were in high school and junior high school, where there were certain kids that were targeted of being different and being made fun of. I don't like that. I don't know why. It's just the cloth that I'm cut out of. I'm a little bit ashamed to say that maybe I could have done more. Sometimes kids were bullied, and I didn't like it, but I didn't really have the balls to do anything about it. I was kind of an average kid. I wasn't big, I wasn't strong. My father didn't teach me to fight, and I was never taught to retreat all the time, but I didn't have to, mostly because I had a normal body and a certain amount of normal speech and not very many social skills, which I still don't. I like the camera better than I like humans. Anyway, there are two situations. One just came to my mind. The first one, I was in 6th grade and going into 7th grade, and it was Shamawa Junior High School in Arlington, California. I'm surprised that I can remember this shit. Maybe being old, you remember things and you forget other things. Anyway, I was going from 6th grade to 7th grade. I had spent all my summer before going into 7th grade. I had a bike, and we weren't rich. I've said this before, you know, we were kind of lower middle class. We had a house and we had an old car. We had the necessities of life, but we didn't have the frivolous kind of things that people get. Well, I spent all summer on this bike. It wasn't a new bike. I wanted a new bike really, really bad. And so I sanded the frame and worked many hours on painting it. And I guess I love black. I don't know why. That's my favorite color, black. I had a black 57 Chevy, my first car, that I painted black, just like I'm telling you, I painted my bike. Well, I really did a good job. It looked new. And in those days, we had what was called streamers. I don't know if you've ever seen this. You're all so young that you probably haven't. But the streamers you would put inside the handlebars, and they would fall down in many colors, plastic, and they were just something that were fancy, and if you had streamers, you were cool. I don't know why, but I decided this bike has to be cool. And so it was very beautiful. And I put streamers on it. And I went to 7th grade. And there was a kid. I wish I knew his last name because I put his ass on camera, but his name was Patrick. And he was a bigger kid. He was bigger than a normal 7th grader. And I don't know why. It never happened to me before or since, but he decided to target me, to tease and to harass, to embarrass, and to bully. Well, I never had a bully in my life, and one day I was in the boys' shower room for PE, getting dressed, and we had these benches that were in the cement that you couldn't move. And I was getting dressed, and Patrick came up behind me, I guess, and pushed me, and I went over the bench and flopped over on the floor, and everybody was laughing, and I wasn't. It didn't seem funny to me. So, and I never had anything like that, where somebody just has arbitrarily picked me out and wanted to bully me. Well, I didn't fight back. I didn't know if I should stand up and swear at him or threaten him. With what? My little tiny skinny arms? I don't know, that wouldn't threaten him. So anyway, it was a experience. I'm 75 years old, and that was when I was in 7th grade. Well, as time went on, he didn't really tease me a lot. There was that one incident there that stayed in my mind, but I still was on his shit list and targeted. I hadn't seen him. I didn't know him. I hadn't said anything ever to him, but he just decided that he wanted to screw with me. So I had this beautiful, beautiful bike, and I took it to school, probably to show off a little bit and probably to say, you know, we're not that poor. At least I have a nice bike. So I had my bike at school, and the streamers were hanging out of the handlebars, and Patrick came up to me to tease me and to harass me. And I had my new bike, and I was on my bike and standing there, and he teased me verbally. Then he didn't grab me by the short hairs. That would have been better than what he did. He took my streamers, and they were on springs, and he pulled them almost to the ground, and the spring just stretched, stayed in my handlebars, but my streamers were on the ground. I don't remember how much I paid for those, and that's probably not the point, but I probably paid something for them, and I lost that money. All the other kids started laughing at me, and my bike, in my opinion, was ruined. My streamers were ruined, and they were hanging down, and I had to ride my bike home with the streamers dragging on the ground. So I looked like a fool, and Patrick got his way with me. Well, in those days, I was a little bit, now and then, afraid to go to school because I knew Patrick was going to be there, and I knew that Patrick was going to target me and tease the hell out of me. So you have to understand, my dad, he was a good man. He was a child molester, and that's a fatal character flaw. Anybody that molests little girls or boys, in my opinion, is really worse than a bully, worse than any bully thing you could do. And I'm going to use the word, I hate him for that, because that's not a legacy that I really wanted to come from, if you know what I mean. And it certainly ruined my sister's life, and ruined my stepsister's life and other girls, little girls in the community. I hate him for that, but he was otherwise a good man. He supported us. He went to work every day. He was a printer at the Star Free Press in California, and basically all the other qualities about my father were good. He was responsible in the community. He did buy a house we lived in, a couple of houses, And I don't want to take that away from him. I've learned in, again, old age that one serious fall, an alcoholic, a parent who is a drug addict, a parent who molests kids, a parent who is evil in some way, can be good in other ways. Anyway, getting back to my story, my father never had much common sense. Now, it's rumored that his IQ was 140. He was in the service, and I don't know if they did an IQ test in the service in those days, World War II. But he was pretty smart in some areas, very smart in some areas, but very dumb in common sense. Well, again, we couldn't get a dog. All of us kids wanted a dog for a pet. And so we couldn't afford to really go to the dog pound. We called it a pound, P-O-U-N-D in those days, and get a rescue. We didn't have the word rescue, a dog. Anyway, we pressured my dad, and he was trying to be a good dad, and he found, I don't know where he found, Buck, B-U-C-K, not F-U-C-K. It could have been F-U-C-K, but we called him Buck. Anyway, he was a bulldog, a pretty big bulldog. And Dad brought him home to meet the kids, and for us to love Buck, and for Buck to love us and protect us. Buck was a bulldog, a bulldog. Well, like I said, my dad in some ways was a genius. In other ways, he was a very stupid man. So he brought the dog home, and we tried to pet Buck. He would bite the shit out of us. And the kids, all of us just ran like hell because Buck would chase us. And Buck was not a friendly dog. He was a junkyard dog. I don't know if my dad ever got him from the junkyard. I don't know. But his attitude was a junkyard dog. So my dad had to put a big collar on him and a big chain. And he chained him, not in the backyard, but he chained him in the front yard, right where the front door was. And Buck would have to live on a chain. And we would go to pet him, and Buck would charge us and try to bite us to death. He was a good family dog, if you know what I mean. God, I think, well, I know, my dad was bipolar. In those days, they didn't even recognize a person that was bipolar. But my dad thought he was a good man because he got his children a dog. Well, we had a dog. So Buck was trained. I don't know who trained him, but if you raised one finger over your head and you said and pointed, "Get him, Buck," the dog would charge in such a way that it was kind of like a police dog these days. We didn't have police dogs back when I was your age, but we would go, "Get him, Buck," and whatever we pointed at, he would chew to death. He would chew the porch, he would chew the front door, and he would chew your bike and anything that you pointed at and said, "Get him, Buck." Now again, he was a good family dog. You couldn't get close to him. And we used to, as kids, love to get where his chain would stop him, but we would yell, "Get him, Buck," and he would charge until the chain became taut and stop him. And we used to think that was fun. That's how we played with our dog. Get him, Buck. So, Patrick continued to bully, and that was the right word, bully, me. And I didn't like that. I didn't really know what to do about it. And Patrick used to have to walk by our house every day to and from school. And I would be on the lawn, and he would pass by and again try to tease me. So even at a young age, 7th grade, I hated bullies, and I have to admit, I became, and I do today, very aggressive. If someone tries to intimidate or bully me, you're effing with the wrong person. Because I've learned, I'm not tough, I'm old, I can hardly stand up, I can't see shit. But if you bully me, you're effing with the wrong person. So anyway, I took an idea that I had, and I took Buck's chain off of the cement pillar that he was chained to in the front yard, and I went around behind our gate, and I drove this large stake into the ground, and I put Buck's chain on the stake, and I knew how far the chain would go, and that he would be chained to our side yard. So one day I was sitting on the front lawn, innocently, minding my own business. And lo and behold, here comes Patrick. And Patrick's walking down the sidewalk. And I guess that was the first time I had any inkling or courage or thought of how to, handle a bully. So he was walking by, and I was sitting on the lawn, and I said, when he got to where I was on the sidewalk, I don't remember exactly my words that I said, but it was something like, F you, Patrick. Well, I had never said something to him ever back. This was more than a shock to him that this little 7th grade kid is screwing with him. Well, it didn't take him much thought. He decided to come up on our lawn and beat me up. I think that's what his intent was, to beat me up. So, as soon as he got close to me, I raised my hand and pointed, and I said, "Get him, Buck." That dog came charging out of the gate. And Patrick, I think, saw him coming because Buck's chain was kind of like the chain that you put an anchor on in a boat. It had to be a huge chain because Buck would break every chain you put him on. But we had him on a chain that he couldn't break, so I knew I was being safe, and I knew that I was going to scare the hell out of Patrick, and maybe Patrick, the bully, would quit bullying me. And so Buck goes by me, and the chain goes by me, and I'm calm because I know that Patrick's going to jump back on the sidewalk and maybe leave me alone. Well, I was sitting there watching the chain go by, and pretty soon I saw the stake that I had driven in the ground to hold Buck so that he wouldn't kill somebody go by me. And I thought to myself, I don't think this is good. I don't think this is good news. Maybe I have gone beyond handling a bully. Well, Buck didn't think so. Patrick was running his ass as fast as he could down the sidewalk, screaming, yelling, flopping his arms and his legs. "Help, help, help." I said, "I'm not going to help him. I'm not going to help him. I'm not going to go get that crazy dog. That dog will bite me." So the stake goes by me and the chain. And now Buck is running after Patrick with this huge chain on him and a stake bouncing on the sidewalk. Well, I thought, God will save Patrick. I started praying to Jesus that the dog wouldn't kill Patrick because I would feel guilty and maybe I would get in trouble. So Buck didn't kill him. Buck caught up to Patrick and jumped up on Patrick while Patrick was running and latched on to his butt with his teeth. Now, Buck's back feet are are going down the sidewalk as fast as Patrick is running, but Buck's front feet were up where his mouth was on Patrick's ass. Well, he took a bite out of Patrick's ass, and I had to somehow get Buck back and get him back to the house and chained to the house. I have to say, in this story, Patrick never effed me again. He never teased me. He showed a little bit of respect. When I was around, he would walk around me. He wouldn't say anything. I mean, maybe he was a Mormon, I don't know. He never said, "I'm sorry." He never said, "I made a bad judgment, a bad mistake, and I teased you, and I bullied you, and that's not the way to treat another human being." Patrick never said any of that, just like the Mormons who have abused me my whole life. They never say, "I'm sorry," and they never make mistakes. But you know what? They left me alone. So far now, in this day and age, the Mormon Church, who has bullied me my whole life, I have stood up for myself. I don't have a junkyard dog that I can point and say, "Get him, Buck." But my videos, your support of looking at my videos, and again, your support giving me a small donation on PayPal, those things have validated me and helped me pay for some of the small costs that I have for doing these videos and my education. And if you're entertained, fine, give me a little donation, great. So at a very young age, I was programmed to hate bullies. Is that my destiny? I don't know. What's destiny? Is that my mission in life? Like my patriarchal blessing says, I had a special mission to perform. Is that a mission of handling bullies? Now, there's one more bully story that I want to stay in this video with. I told you that I worked for R.C. Merriam in Ojai, California. Mr. Merriam was an heir to the Merriam-Webster Dictionary, and that was in Springfield, Massachusetts, where the Merriam-Webster Dictionary headquarters, I think, was in Springfield. Anyway, all the young years of my life, when I was a sophomore, junior, and senior in high school, I worked taking care of Mr. Merriam. He was had Parkinson's disease, and I helped him all day, every day, and I got paid, and paid reasonably good for a kid. Well, he had one son, and I think it was a son that he probably wished he never had. And I'm going to use his name because I'm judgment proof. Who the hell is going to sue somebody who is judgment proof? So anyway, Alan Merriam. And I was about 16 or 17. And Alan was 2 or 3 years younger than I was. And the Merriams had money. They were multi-millionaires. And so when I was 16 or 17, Mrs. Merriam, the wife, came to me and said, would you take Alan around the United States and show him sightseeing places and things where he could learn? I said, right, that's a free vacation and free trip for me. Everything was paid for, food, hotels, transportation. I said, sure, I'll take Alan, even though he's an idiot. So anyway, I took Alan, and we went to Montreal, Canada. Was one of our stops. And there was a train. In those days, they didn't have bullet trains. And it wasn't so old that it was a steam engine. It was just like a monorail, kind of a train, transportation. And we got on the train to go somewhere in the, I want to say Expo. I think it was the Expo in Montreal in those days. It was kind of like the World's Fair. So anyway, we got on one of the passenger trains and we were both sitting there. And you have to remember, in those days, I hate to admit it, but you know, the black people were more discriminated against than they are today. They had to suffer against and with the white people who took advantage of them and bullied them. So we were sitting on the train, and these three girls, little girls, whatever, 8, 9, 10, came in, and the seats opposed each other, and they sat across from us. Two of these girls were white, Caucasian girls. One was a cute little black girl. And the three of them sat down and stared at us, and we stared at them. I didn't think anything of it. They were normal kind of little girls. And lo and behold, while we were sitting there, this older lady came in, and she reached over to the little black girl. And all of these girls had on a nice little souvenir, I guess it was, chain, and it had an emblem or something that was hanging on, a decoration that, you know, kids buy, and they all want to look the same and buy the same thing, and they did. All three girls had on a little cute trinket. Well, this old lady, with no provocation, no speech, no interaction, just walks up to this little black girl who was sitting there innocently and grabbed her medallion and the chain, and she pulled on it. Sorry, I'm old. Hard enough to break it. And I was sitting there and watching that, and I don't like bullies. I'm sorry. Donate more money so I can go to the doctor. Anyway, I didn't like it. And I was young. I was 16, 17, in a foreign country, minding my own business and knowing that you get involved in shit in a foreign country. Even in those days, I was smart enough to know that you don't do that. So I said to the old lady, what are you doing? And she looked at me. I was sitting. She was standing over me in the superior position. She was older. I was younger. I wasn't respecting my elders. And she held the trinket in her hand and the chain dangling down, and said, when I said to her, what are you doing? She said, she stole it. Well, I saw her get on with the other two little girls. They all had it on. And there was no indication to me that this little human being, who was vulnerable, who was being bullied, had stolen anything. She had probably bought it, or maybe the other girls bought it together. I don't know how the purchase was, but in my mind, the purchase was legitimate. Assumed, presumed. So the lady then was a little bit verbally abusive, corrected me that it wasn't my business, shut up, stay out of it, and the little black girl was crying. She'd done nothing. She was totally innocent. She was scared, humiliated, embarrassed. And this happened a long time ago, more than 65 years ago, and I don't know, I get tears in my eyes and I feel emotional. When I saw that innocent little girl being tortured by an adult who was more powerful, who had all of the power to hurt her for no reason. No reason in my mind. I guess the old lady had a reason in her mind, but I didn't agree with her bullying that poor little black girl. Again, I hate to get involved in shit. You know, I'm not a person that wants confrontation. I don't want being at odds with other people. I like to try to get along. Well, I don't know. The buck, the junkyard dog, I guess, came out of me even at that young age again. And the monorail had automatic doors on it, so that when the passengers cleared the doors, they would automatically shut, and the engineer would know it was safe, and the whole 7 or 8, 10 cars, whatever it was, had all the doors closed, and it could proceed. Well, I went over and stood in the path of the automatic doors. They tried to close on me, and they didn't injure me, but they wouldn't close, and I wouldn't move. I was standing my ground again against a bully, and I stood there long enough that the alarms in the station and in the cars went off, indicating that the train couldn't move, shouldn't move, and probably couldn't move, and the doors couldn't close. Well, I stood there, I don't know how long, whether it was a minute or 8 minutes, I don't know. But pretty soon, 2 policemen came running down the station sidewalk there, and came to investigate why those 2 doors wouldn't close. And now all the monorail cars were backed up on the track because they were timed and they had to move at a certain time, and if they didn't, then the other cars had to slow down or stop. Anyway, they came up to me and said, you know, what are you doing? You need to get out of the doorway. And I don't know, in those days, I guess I was the bard and the cockroach too. I didn't know I was a little bard and I was a little cockroach. And I said, no, I'm not getting out of the door. And I was in a foreign country, I was young, and I had 2 foreign policemen, Canadian police, that were about to drag me and maybe arrest me. I don't know what they were going to do. I was responsible for Alan sitting in there, and it wasn't a good situation. So they said, what is the problem? And I said to them very directly and clearly that, maybe I called her old, probably not. I probably said, that lady just stole that necklace from that little girl. And they said, what's going on? And I said, well, the 3 little girls got on, they all had necklaces, and this lady came up, grabbed the necklace of this little girl, and snapped it off her neck, and you can see she's holding it. She stole it. So the police went over to the old lady and said to her, What's going on? And the old lady said, and I remember this as if it was yesterday, to the policeman, she stole it. She stole it. Now see, I have that feeling again, and the emotion. She didn't steal it. She was only a minority. She was only a little girl. She was innocent. She couldn't defend herself. She couldn't even understand why this whole situation was going on. The lady was still holding the necklace and the medallion. That was evidence. I didn't know the word evidence. I still can't spell it, but that was evidence that I was telling the truth. And the two policemen took the old lady and said, "You're under arrest for theft." And they escorted her off the train, and I sat down and the train doors closed, and life went on. I tell those two stories, I think, because they left a hard impression on me about how certain human beings treat other human beings. How the judgment of one human concerning another because they have big ears or a large nose, or they're small, or they're too fat, or they're a minority. How unjust those judgments are. And certainly we all have the independent ability to say, I don't like fat people, I don't like skinny people, I don't like minority people. That's our right and our opinion. But when we take our right and our opinion into a public action of saying to somebody, you're too fat, you're too ugly, you're a minority, you're stupid. When that goes public, now that's, for me, crossing a line. That's gone beyond your opinion into the public domain. Yeah, we have a constitution. There's no freedom of speech in the Constitution. I know all the conspiracy people think there is. They've never read the Constitution. The right of privacy. Well, the right to privacy is not in the Constitution. I misspoke. Free speech is in the Constitution. I made a mistake. See, I admit it. I'm not a Mormon anymore. When it goes out into public, today, and not when these things were going on, you know, we're talking about another time, another world. There wasn't hate speech in those days. That has been a good evolution of mankind to recognize that some speech, yeah, it's free speech, but it now incites human beings to act hate speech, and it's threatening. So, I don't like bullies, and I'm proud of the way I've dealt with bullies. I'll give you just one more quick. My son, who's crazy, most of my kids are crazy, but my one son, he came home from school one day and he was crying, and I said, you know, what's going on? And he says, there's this kid at school that is teasing me and pushing me down and bullying me. We didn't even have the word bullying. It was there, but we didn't use that word a lot. That's much more of a modern way of describing torturing and hassling somebody. And I asked him, you know, what this kid did, and it was real bullying, pushing him down, hitting him, taking his lunch money, a real asshole kid. Well, I was a young father. My judgment is different today because my experiences and knowledge today is different. I can handle bullies today differently and better than I could then. And I felt bad for my son and felt like I should protect him. So I did the fatherly thing. I showed him how to punch and how to hit somebody and defend himself. And so he had now that skill that I gave him to handle a bully in those days. It's not a good skill these days to handle a bully. It's better to take their money, it's better to humiliate them, it's better to etc. So I took him to school, and we were by the curb at the school, and he was about to get out of the car, and then he hesitated. And I said, "What's wrong?" And he says, "Well, there he is, he's right there, Dad." And I said, "And that's the kid that has been bullying you?" And he said, "Yeah." And the bully had his back to my son and me in the car. And I advised my son to go up to the bully and don't give him any warning at all. Just say his name, and when he turns around, hit him as hard in the face as you can with your fist. I was a young father. That was the way I was. I didn't have a lot of skills or education. I didn't have a lot of ability or knowledge how to defend my child. I knew I couldn't hit the kid. I was that smart. Well, sure enough, the kid turned around, and my son just raised his arm and just hit that effing kid in the face. The kid went down. The kid went down on the ground. He saw who did it, my son, and he never bothered my son ever again. Did we win? Yeah, I guess a small victory. The battle, I'm not sure. That's not the best way to handle a bully. I've learned in my old age a better way of handling bullies. Well, the principal comes out of the office and the building, and he investigates the situation, and he interviews the bully, and I guess he interviewed my son. He took them all in the office, and he took me in the office. I was used to going to the principal's office, not for beating anyone up, but other shenanigans that I would be involved in. I wasn't a delinquent, but I wasn't Mr. Clean either. So the principal took me in his office, and he said, "I understand that you trained your son and then instructed your son this morning to go to, I'm going to call him Patrick because in this video you'll understand it's another Patrick, and hit Patrick with no provocation." And I said to the principal, "Well, there was provocation, not today, but historically, he was bullying my child." Well, the principal said to me, "You are banned from this school. You are not allowed ever again to be on these school grounds. If you come to the school and I witness you here, I'm going to have you arrested." And I said, "Okay, I think I understand that." And I got up and I got back in my car, and I never went to that school ever again. I obey the law. I do obey the law. Am I on the fringes? Sometimes I've been on the fringes, I guess. So anyway, those are part of my bully stories. I'm going to summarize this video by saying that many times a bully can be overt. It is obvious that this human being is pushing, teasing, taking your lunch money, taking your lunch, hitting your books out of your hand, pantsing you. I can't even go on with how many different ways that a bully can harass another human being. But many times it is subliminal. Many times somebody knows passive aggressively that they're hurting another person, but they continue to do it. That has been my experience with the Mormon Church. They've never come up to me and pushed me or shoved me or poked my eyes like a Three Stooges movie, but they've taken my money fraudulently. They've lied to me. They've threatened to take my family, my wife, my children away from me if I don't do what they say. They shun me. That's not pushing you down. That's not teasing you as we ordinarily think of a bully. But when somebody shuns you, we're all human creatures to a certain point that we're social beings. When people won't talk to you or be around you, or they turn their back and walk away because of something you said or did, shunning is a bully. Shunning is a bully. Making you wear their underwear. Forcing you to wear their underwear. Or you can't go to their building. If you don't wear the Mormon garments, you're forced not to be able to go to their buildings. You're shunned again. More passive-aggressive, bullying behavior. If you drink coffee, if you smoke or have alcohol, you're again shunned. You are an apostate. They even have words for hate. Apostate. You've lost your testimony. You break the word of wisdom. When you joined the church, you covenanted with God, angels, and these witnesses at this altar that you wouldn't smoke, drink, tea, and coffee. Eat meat unsparingly. I don't like bullies. God damn. I just don't like bullies. I think that each person should be free to associate, to think, to reasonably speak, and to mingle with other people. When people congregate into groups like the Mormon Church, and they are in a bubble, they believe they're in a celestial bubble, that God has created the bubble that they're in, that they're superior to other people, they're special, they're unique, they're not part of the human race, that basically they're saying we are better and we don't want you in our group unless you look like us, speak like us, that you basically have the same skin color as us, and that you speak the same language and you participate in the same culture. So, there are many ways of being bullied, and organizations can do that, and they do that. They set themselves up as the leaders, and they have in their temple ceremony, the Mormons, no ill speaking of the Lord's anointed. What does that mean? Ill speaking of the Lord's anointed. That means you don't say shit. You shut your mouth. If you don't like the way somebody in authority is treating you tough, tough. You shut your mouth, you bow your head in the Mormon temple and say yes. That's what you're instructed to do. Bow your head and say yes. I think those are words that come out of a bully's mouth. I don't think normal people come up to other normal people and generally say, you will bow your head and say yes to me. I think that that's a person who's bullied. I think you're being forced to accept something that you may not want to suggest to accept. But the other person is powerful enough that you have to basically bow your head and say yes. If you don't, they will take, in the older days, even your life. Porter Rockwell was the hitman for Joseph Smith. The Danites were a militia, kind of a secret CIA group that taunted and tortured and bullied people that disagreed with Joseph Smith. William Law used to be in, I think, the first presidency with Joseph Smith, and when Brother Law saw the 30 wives of Joseph Smith and the 14-year-old wives of Joseph Smith, William Law had enough balls to go, nah, this is not what homie don't play this game. And he left the church, and he was the owner of the Nauvoo Expositor newspaper in Nauvoo. I think his brother was a half owner, and he was about to print a newspaper article on the shenanigans of Joseph Smith, the 30 polygamous wives, the 14-year-old girls, and some of the other antics that Joseph Smith was involved in, charging people to look for gold with magic stones and magic trinkets and whatever. So Joseph Smith was the mayor of Nauvoo.